Hello, good afternoon. This is Lyra, and I am here on Sunday, February 2nd, 2020, and I would like to share what we are presenting to all of you. And this is following the SCRUM format, as I have been talking about. So this is all in collaboration with the Coalition for the Protection of Children and Families. And we have been working on an advocate performance evaluation sheet. And the advocate performance evaluation sheet will cover some of the concerns that parents have. We have been hearing a lot about the blacklisting of advocates. There are multiple blacklists out there that have no supportive evidence and listing people as fake and false advocates. In an effort to provide more transparency and clarity, we have been working on an evaluation sheet of all advocates, both good and bad. Please review the following flowchart and ponder other questions to include in this chart. Our next meeting will be on completing and implementing this and another evaluation, the current projects to complete for the next 2 weeks. This will be published through the Coalition for the Protection of Children and Families and the Parent Advocate Network, working together to help parents navigate through the plethora of organizations and advocates for various applications. The open assignment here is to provide an estimation of the effectiveness of advocates in all sectors of life by offering an evaluation sheet with ability to share information and proof of merit. We start out with an outline here that has been created by team members at the Coalition for Protection of Children and Families and the Parent Advocate Network. We first ask about the name of the person that is submitting the evaluation, their email address, and what state they're in. Then we go further to ask about what organization or advocate they are putting an evaluation in for, whether or not that organization or advocate has a certificate of incorporation, what other accreditations that advocate or organization may have, and what state or states they will be operating in. The next section that we are working on is going to offer a rating scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. We are requesting our advocates and team members to please review this and add your suggestions to make this evaluation successful. We want to make sure that all topics are covered. So right now we have a question about organizational skills, whether or not you are given easy to follow instructions, whether or not the organization or advocate has provided you with accurate resources and a good direction. When we have completed this evaluation form, we will be distributing it through the coalitionforprotection.org and our other social media outlets. We have pages on Facebook, we have LinkedIn accounts, and we have Twitter accounts that are also linked with our organizations that we are in collaboration with. All members are requested to participate in this evaluation and to share with your network when we have completed and published it. Thank you very much, and I hope that you all will go to the YouTube channel, and I will play this to give you more of an idea of how SCRUM method is used in completing and accomplishing our goals.
That SCRUM has its origins in the world of software development, but now it's sweeping through myriad other places where work gets done. Everything from building a rocket ship to managing payroll to journalism. SCRUM accelerates effort. It doesn't matter what that effort is. On a typical Scrum project, you only see teams that are between 3 and 9 people. A team beyond 9 people cannot communicate effectively. This team is responsible for estimating the work. The people that do the work estimate the work. The team completes work in short work sprints, and they aim to demo their work at the end of the work sprints to validate their work and gather feedback. Here are the 7 steps of every Scrum sprint. Step number 1, populate a backlog of all the things you need to do on the project. Don't make it very detailed. Just list all the items you need to complete on the project. Put them in story format. Each task should read like a narrative. Who needs it? What specifically do they need? And why do they need it? What are they going to use it for? This makes the tasks easier to read, and you can hand a task off to anyone, and they can start off without a lot of explanation. During this first step, you also prioritize the backlog, and you do it in terms of the customer value and the immediate impact that each task will have upon completion. If it's going to generate revenue right away, then that item should be near the top.
We're not here to generate revenue, though. This is about helping parents better navigate through the trials and tribulations of not only family rights and family courts and juvenile courts, but in daily parenting, in daily family activities, and other areas, including what parents who have disabilities or have children with disabilities need in order to do and perform better for themselves and their family.
This first step is done by the product owner, who is the visionary for the project's outcome. The second step is to estimate each of these tasks relatively by using the Fibonacci sequence. Use the Fibonacci sequence because it's easier to distinguish between numbers like 5 and 8 as compared to 4 and 5. Humans are great at telling the difference between 1, 2, and 3, but beyond that, it just seems like many. Author Jeff Sutherland states that don't estimate in absolute terms like ours. It's been proven that humans are terrible at that. Size things relatively, like t-shirt sizes, small, medium, extra large, or more commonly, the Fibonacci sequence. The Fibonacci sequence is very common in nature, so humans are very used to it. They've been used to it for thousands of years. To apply your relative estimate, start with the hardest, longest item. Apply the top end of your Fibonacci sequence range, so for this case it would be 13, and then estimate all other items relative to the hardest item. Step number 3, plan your work sprint. Work sprints are typically 1 to 2 weeks long. They all must be less than 1 month long. And the goal is to get to a demo date at the end of the work sprint. So you have to determine how many of these points that you've assigned to tasks you can complete before the end of the sprint. Let's say for this sprint, we could do 108 points. It's an educated guess. After the first sprint, you realize that you only completed 96 points. You now use this 96 points as a baseline for future sprints. I like to try and improve upon the initial point value by 10% for all successive sprints. Step number 4 is to make your work visible. You do this by creating a SCRUM storyboard. A simple storyboard includes 3 columns: what you're going to do, what you're doing, and what you've done for the sprint. So we populate the do column. If this was on the wall, you would use post-it notes, and each post-it note would represent a task. As you start doing it, you move it to the doing column, and as you complete it, you move it to the done column. Each day, you update what's called a burn down chart. The burn down chart is simply a chart that has an initial sprint point value on the y-axis, and you want to subtract from that initial point value each day to, at the end of the sprint, hopefully be down to 0 points remaining. Step number 5 of a SCRUM sprint is to do daily 15-minute stand-up meetings. During these meetings, you ask, what did we do yesterday? What do we plan to do today? And what obstacles are slowing us down? How can we make improvements? This discussion is led by the SCRUM leader, who's the facilitator for the team.
So daily meetings are just going to be on the messenger board. We can communicate. We don't need to be meeting up on Zoom or any other platform. Just have some response as far as what we're looking for, what it's going to be done by, who's going to do it, and then completing that. So what I have asked for is more questions along the lines of the performance of the advocate or the organization that is offering services. That can be done, again, like I say, through a message board. And we do that through Facebook Messenger at this time.
Step number 6. At the end of your sprint, you demo your minimal viable product. It's a product that has a working feature, not a complete product, but something that you can demonstrate. During the demonstration, you get feedback from the user, from the customer. The customer will let you know if they approve the feature, or they'll tell you to improve it. The final step of a Scrum sprint is to get your team together and go over what went well last sprint, what didn't go well, and what improvements can we make to the next sprint. After you've identified the things you can improve upon, you start the next sprint, going back to step 1. Now, why is Scrum so powerful? Why is it so much better than existing project management methods, other than just the original estimate phase? There are 3 core reasons. The first is that on Scrum projects, you improve exponentially. Because you're having daily stand-up meetings, and because at the end of each sprint, you need to get feedback and further improve the way you're doing work. These process improvements compound on one another, like compounding interest. And eventually, they grow to be massive changes. This is why you can do twice the work in half the time. The second core reason Scrum is better than most projects is that it follows the 80-20 principle. The 80-20 principle states that 80% of the value will come from 20% of the effort or time on a project. Therefore, if we look at each sprint as the initial 20% of every project, we can in a sense get 80% of the value out of every sprint that we take. This can lead to a huge value return, far greater than what was initially expected. The final core reason why Scrum's better than most projects is that the sprints in a Scrum are a constraint for your work hours. A typical project requires that you put in some extra hours due to the fact that you aren't getting the feedback fast enough and you need to catch up. When you work more hours, your decision quality goes down. As your decision quality goes down, your rework goes up, which results in more work for the project, which results in more hours and to poorer decisions. It's a downward death spiral for your project. So there you have it. That's why Scrum kicks ass. If you would like a
That is why the Scrum system kicks ass. And that is why we are using it in completing projects that seem to be taking forever for people to complete. Let's work together and get this stuff done. Let's help these people who are asking for help and make sure that they're getting the proper assistance and advocacy that they need. I look forward to participating in this open assignment. Until next time, have a great evening. Bye.